You join me here at the RYA Dinghy Show 2013, and I'm joined by Ralph Roberts. And Ralph's going to tell me all about dinghy cruising. So, Ralph, first of all, what exactly do you mean when we say dinghy cruising?
Well, for me, it's about setting out to some destination, stopping and carrying out some activity. Might be having a picnic or going to a pub or even camping overnight, and then getting back in the boat and either sailing back to your start point or on to the next destination.
So is this something that you do as an individual, with the whole family?
It can be done either. Certainly it's very nice to take the family out for an easy picnic, either across the lake or just down the river. I go on organised cruises with the Wayfarer Association, but there are other classes like the Dinghy Cruising Association that organise similar trips. It's very nice to be able to cruise in company and enjoy the trip with other boats.
Oh, that's lovely. So you get a group of you and you all go to the same destination?
We do, yes.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
And the organisation of starting out, somebody has organised where you can park the cars and where you can launch and where you can land when you arrive there, so it makes everything much more easy to sort out.
So what kind of dinghies make good cruising boats and why?
Well, you can cruise in virtually any type of boat, but really you're looking for stability and space. That's the two most important features that you want when you're cruising.
So what kind of boats would you what would be your top three, or sort of off the top of your head?
Well, obviously because I sail a Wayfarer, I have to mention the Wayfarer. The disadvantage, because weight helps stability, the Wayfarer is very good for cruising because it is so heavy, but it's a disadvantage on land. So if a situation where that is a difficulty, then it's best to buy a smaller boat, say a Wanderer or a GP14, or if you can afford to have something heavier, a Drascombe is ideal.
So when people are perhaps they're here at the boat show and they're having a wander around, what things should they be looking for a good cruising boat?
Well, space to store things and comfort when you're sailing. Unfortunately, most dinghies are designed by racing people, and racers don't do comfort.
So when you say comfort, is this a nice soft seat, or what would you explain by comfort?
Well, my particular mark of Wayfarer has a narrow side deck, which can be very uncomfortable to sit on after about 12 hours.
Right.
So I have mounted a garden kneeler cushion on the side and makes it much more comfortable to sit on. So if you have got a boat that isn't designed well for a particular thing to make it more comfortable, then you have to adapt it to suit yourself.
We hear about people getting the adrenaline rush of racing. What is it about dinghy cruising that's so special for you? Because I can see you've got a great passion for it.
Well, I like always venturing to somewhere new. Different scenery, you get a different situation cropping up in front of you, and you have to sort out which way you're going to go, what you're going to do, where you're going to stop for the night. You get some glorious sailing. I feel almost sorry for the racers because they're going around the same circuit time after time, and if they don't win, I wonder what they've actually... I suppose they've enjoyed it, but when you're cruising, everybody's a winner because you only need to get to your destination and you've had a great sail with no disappointment that you haven't achieved as high a position as you had hoped.
So when did you start dinghy cruising yourself?
Well, I suppose I started out actually as a canoeist and always canoed from one point to another. So that set me off for wanting to go distances rather than race round a circuit. And I've just maintained that interest. I suppose Frank Dye inspired me, as he's inspired many people, and I saw what he could do and I thought, yes, that's for me. I'd like to do something similar.
So roughly how long would a passage be on a cruise? What's the typical time scale that you would take a cruise in a dinghy?
Sorry.
No, let's carry on.
If I was cruising, say, along the Swedish coast, one of my Norwegian coasts, the favourite is in Scandinavia, I would reckon to start off about 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, because it takes a fair amount of time to pack everything away, ready for sailing. And if you're on holiday, there's no need to rush. It's not like the start line of a race. So you can just pack away everything nice and easily and comfortably. Do make sure everything is thoroughly secure. And then you set off. And about 4 o'clock or so, you should start looking for somewhere to stop for the night. Although in Scandinavia, it isn't actually very difficult to find somewhere. But other more problematic coasts, you would need to start looking about 4 o'clock because it might take you an hour to find somewhere safe and suitable to moor up for the night.
Okay, so if someone's going out on their cruise, what would be sort of your top 2 or 3 tips about what would they need to do to make sure they were prepared for their trip?
Well, they'd need to make sure they had enough experience for their trip. Often racers tend to be a little bit too ambitious on their cruising because they are obviously competent sailors. They feel that they can do some adventurous trip, but you need to know how much gear to take, what gear to take, and where it is exactly in the boat. So you need to build up that experience because if you decide on an ambitious trip, you can't suddenly get a load of things together, chuck it in the boat and expect to know where everything is. So you need to prepare yourself and you need to prepare the boat. When you're racing, you have a safety boat to sort out any problems that you might have. But when you're cruising, you are on your own and you need to sort out any difficulties yourself. So the boat needs to be equipped so that you can deal with any situation.
So what kind of kit would you take with you?
I have a list 4 pages long that I've developed over sort of 25 years of cruising. And I had this incident in Ireland where the boat, when we were launching, my crew didn't realise that you needed to keep it stern on to the waves that were coming in. He let it get side on and it smashed against the wall of the harbour and broke the outboard bracket piece of wood. And so I got out my drill, my saw, offcuts of plywood that I carry, screws, and I made a temporary repair that was sufficient to last for the trip. So that's the extensive sort of kit that I carry, and you build up this sort of knowledge of what to take for whatever trip you're going to do.
So preparation really is key.
It is very key for doing an advanced trip. If you're doing a nice easy day sail somewhere, obviously you don't really need very much, particularly if there are other boats around that can help you out if something goes wrong.
Wonderful. So obviously you've been dinghy cruising for quite some time, but I imagine there's lots of great places in the UK and abroad. You mentioned abroad earlier, but anything in the UK that particularly stands out as a favourite?
Well, Scotland is my favourite. In sort of England, Scotland. Although the last year or the year before, I cruised from Baltimore to Dublin, and the southern coast of Ireland particularly was a fantastic place. Very exposed, and I did notice there was a top-of-the-range lifeboat in virtually every port that we called in. So it does show how potentially dangerous the coastline is. Abroad, I've been to Nova Scotia. That's a fantastically rocky place with loads of islands. The west coast of Norway, in fact, all the way down from Norway, down the coast to Gothenburg, there is almost a series of islands inside the coastline that make a wonderful place and safe place area to sail. And then the other side of Sweden and off to Finland, absolutely incredible sailing. It's a long way to go and it's expensive on the ferry, but well worth it.
So what would you say to someone that might be watching today who's thinking about giving dinghy cruising a try? What would you say to them?
Start off very simply. It might not be for you because the comfort and convenience factors are very low. So you have to be fairly hardy. The cruisers are not called the bucket and chuck it brigade for nothing.